Today we're doing something a bit different. Not just reviewing software, but really performing a kind of autopsy on a blueprint for governance, a really radical one.
Yeah, we're looking at the core architecture, the design thinking behind this custom web application, the T&M app.
Right, and it was built specifically, they say, to create self-managing organizations out of, and this is their phrase, loosely associated humans.
That phrase is so telling, isn't it? Loosely associated humans. It just jumps out. It really flags the central challenge here. How do you get freedom and self-management, but also structure?
Mm.
And looking at our sources, these architectural notes, UI designs, the flow logs,
Hmm.
the answer seems to be, well, through mandated structure,
Mm.
almost radical structure.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to dig into that technical and philosophical framework, see how it enables this, frankly, super ambitious goal, which, could also be incredibly complex.
Right, so let's unpack this framework.
Okay.
The developers laid out three core architectural mandates, like the system's DNA. So first, we have app profiles. These are the universal nodes, the basic building blocks.
Okay.
Second, relationships. These are the edges, the connections, and they strictly enforce hierarchy and context.
Right, the connective tissue.
And third, tasks, which are these abstractions defining all the process flows.
And they have to work together. It's very clear they were trying to model the whole organization using like deep graph theory ideas
Ah.
and translating those sort of mathematical needs directly into software components that actually, govern how people interact.
Okay, let's start with the absolute foundation then, the app profile, or a pro they call it sometimes. Why is that the cornerstone?
Well, an app profile is the central point for every single relationship in the whole system. The rule is like dead simple, but totally absolute.
Okay.
If anything at all needs to be tracked or connected or referenced, could be a person, a document, an idea, whatever, it must have an app profile, period.
And this is where it gets, I think, really different because it's not just users, right? There are three types.
Exactly. You've got humans, okay, that's authenticated users. Simple enough.
Mm-hmm.
Then tasks. Every single process, every task gets its own app profile, storing its name, description, ID,
Right.
the basics.
Right.
But then there's the third type, the abstractor profiles. And this is where the definition of an entity really stretches.
Okay, how so?
Well, these can represent roles, like admin of app, or groups, maybe the art collectors club,
Mm.
or even completely intangible things like concepts, think welcome, or app, learn how to use.
Oh.
They could even stand in for like external web pages or essays.
So wait, the system is designed to treat the idea of software, or I don't know, this specific document we're reading as an entity,
Yeah,
just as valid as John Smith.
pretty much, yeah.
That sounds like it could get really abstract really fast, maybe confusing.
It is abstract, definitely. But the creation rules, they try to enforce some semantic rigor, discipline.
Ah.
Okay, first rule. To make any a profile, its name has to be unique across the entire database, so no duplicates instantly.
Okay, that helps.
Second, and this is maybe more important, the name has to be semantic. The dev notes really hammer this home. They say you should think of the name as finishing a sentence.
Finish a sentence.
Yeah, like here is an app profile, which I is some relationship of the new app profile name.
Huh. Give me an example.
Okay, so if you create an abstract app profile called art collector, the system sort of expects that name to complete a sentence later, like John is art collector.
Ah, I see. So it forces you to think about how the thing relates even before you fully define it.
Exactly. It dictates the relationship potential right from the name itself.
Okay. And you mentioned tasks can be assigned anything.
Yes. And that ability to assign any a profile, human task, abstract concept, web page to a task is what creates their unique idea of a student.
A student.
Yeah. So in the system's logic, if you have a task tracking the progress of, say, getting a web page reviewed, that web page or profile becomes the student for that task.
Why use that word student? That seems like adding another layer of abstraction. Couldn't I just say related item or something? What's the point of calling a web page a student?
I think it's about forcing conceptual consistency across the board.
How so?
If everything being tracked through a process is always called a student, then the system only needs one way to track progress, one way to handle accountability checks, one way to report on things.
No.
It doesn't matter if the student is a person learning something or a project document moving through approvals or that web page getting built. The process logic is the same because the label is the same. It enforces the process abstraction itself.
Okay. That makes the flexibility feel a bit less. wild, maybe. Still complex, but more defined. And that flows right into the second mandate, relationships. They had a motto for this, right?
They did.
Yeah.
No one is an island. That was the design motto.
No one is an island.
And it really dictates the whole relational structure. Every single app profile, the rule is it should be related to at least one other thing, preferably lots of other things, to ensure visibility and context. Nothing should just float free. If you look at the database structure, our profiles are the nodes, right? And relationships are the edges connecting them. Or technically, the devs called them taxons.
Taxons. Okay, so the system basically forces connection using this required structure. A profiler's relationship with that profile, like a little sentence.
Exactly that. If John is an app profile, he must exist in relationship with some other app profile. Can't just exist alone.
And how do they prevent islands from forming right at the start when a new user joins?
Well, they automate that. Every new user, the moment they're created, is automatically related to two fundamental abstracted profiles, human and organization.
So boom, instant connection, instant context, and a bit of a hierarchy baked in from second one.
All right, no islands allowed right from the start.
Okay, but given you can create abstracted profiles for, well, anything, administrators must be spending all their time just weaving this web of connections, right? How do they manage that? It seems like a huge job.
They have specific tools in the admin dashboard, designed for, hopefully, efficiency. There's the Related Profiles module. Lets you pick two profiles, pick a relationship type from dropdowns, click Relate.
Okay.
And it works with something called a semantic clipboard, which is quite neat, actually.
Semantic clipboard.
Yeah, if you've already selected exactly two items somewhere else in the app, like maybe you just created a new user and you clicked on a task, this clipboard thing can autofill those two items into the Relate module for you. Saves a few clicks.
So it's kind of like drag and drop relationship building, almost.
Sort of, yeah. Makes it a bit quicker. And then there's the Display Relationships module to see all the connections for a specific app profile, broken down into ease relationships and of relationships.
Yeah.
It also pulls the selected profile from that same clipboard.
And the ultimate check to make sure no one is an island.
That's the island utility. It's specifically noted as a planned feature for the admin dashboard. Its whole job is to constantly scan the app relations table, looking for any profiles that somehow slip through the cracks and aren't related to anything.
So like a little background process, constantly worried someone's drifted off into the void.
Pretty much.
It really sums up that tension, doesn't it? Freedom to define almost anything as an entity, but this strict, rigid mandate to connect absolutely everything.
It really does. It shows that even if your goal is self-management, you need this layer of architectural vigilance, constant checking.
Okay, let's move to pillar 3, tasks. We said they're more than to-do lists. They're the engine for process flow, filing trays, training courses, automated record systems. What makes their structure so rigid?
The rigidity is all about standardization, making sure the system can reliably read and manage processes. Structurally, every task has to have 3 parts: the header, the steps, and the assignment.
Okay.
The task steps are where these non-negotiable rules really live.
Right, you mentioned system-managed steps.
Exactly. Every single task, no matter how simple or complex, must start with a minimum of 3 steps. And crucially, abandoned is always step 1. Completed is always step 2.
Always 1 and 2.
Always 1 and 2. And admins cannot edit or delete these. They are fixed by the system. The actual first step of any meaningful process is always step 3.
That's actually quite clever. By forcing the standard failure and success steps right at the beginning, 1 and 2, the system guarantees it always knows how to record didn't finish or did finish, no matter how many custom steps come after.
Precisely. It locks in that final state accountability.
Right.
Then the third part, the task assignment, that's what bridges of profiles and tasks. It defines who the student is.
Which could be a person or an abstract thing.
Right. And who the manager is. The manager is the one who supervises the task, moves the student through the steps.
And I bet the manager role is just as defined by the system logic, too.
Absolutely. You can't just, delete a manager record if they leave. The process dictates you mark their assigned tasks as completed or abandoned first. The record, the history, the relationship, it all stays, preserving that data trail.
Okay, so this very strict categorization everywhere, unique profiles, mandatory relationships, constrained task structures, it all leads us to maybe the most complex bit, how control actually flows, the admin dashboard and how the app executes changes.
Yeah, the admin dashboard is definitely the command center. You've got quick stats, polling metrics, management sections for different areas. But the real architectural heart seems to be this request state change mechanism.
Right. This is the design for how a user clicking something actually makes something happen.
Exactly, and it's very decoupled. This part of the notes was pretty dense.
Okay, walk us through it. How does a simple click translate into, say, a database update if the UI module itself doesn't do the work?
Okay, so user clicks a button, maybe a menu item or one of those dashboard cards. The first thing that happens is the code reads a data attribute from the HTML element that was clicked.
A data attribute, like a hidden instruction.
Sort of, yeah. It contains information about what action is intended. That click action then loads a specific, carefully structured package of data into a global interface object called appstate.query.petitioner. They call this package the petition.
The petition. Okay. So the UI element basically just forms this request packet.
Exactly. And here's the key. The UI module that the user clicked on. It stops there. It does not contain the logic to actually execute the request. It's just like filling out a form.
So the UI is effectively blind. It just bundles up the data and hopes something else picks it up.
That is precisely the design goal. The UI module is just an intermediary, a messenger. It passes off the petition. Then the act of that petition being set triggers a change of state event, which a background listener picks up.
Oh, okay. A listener.
Yeah. This listener reads the petition, figures out what action is being requested, looks up in an internal registry which other module is responsible for handling that specific action, and then it loads and executes the correct function, often using lazy loading so it only pulls in the code it needs right then.
So modules talk to each other, but indirectly through this state change and petition mechanism.
That's the idea. From module to module, as the notes put it.
Wow. That is highly decoupled. Very sophisticated. But it also sounds incredibly complex to build and debug. Why go to all that trouble? Why not just have the button call the function directly? Seems faster.
Well, the notes suggest it's driven by necessity. It ties directly back to their really ambitious goals for automation, and especially for permissions.
Automation? How?
They plan to use this exact state change logic to make things like tasks and surveys into what they call active coding.
Active coding. You mean the system could automatically kick off new tasks or build relationships just based on how someone answers a survey question?
That's the plan. They want to embed predefined actions like assign this user to task X or create relationship Y between these two app profiles right into the survey answers or task steps themselves.
How?
Using those data attributes, again, in the HTML.
Yeah.
So an answer button might have something like data action, add a task, how to build a task.
Okay.
When the user clicks that answer, the system reads the data action, loads the petition, the state machine kicks in, and bang, the user is assigned to the task or the relationship is created.
Ah, so it uses the client-side data immediately to trigger a client-side state change, which then executes the action, potentially faster than going back to the database just to figure out what to do next.
Could be for certain actions, yeah. Especially navigation or simple assignments. It's quite an elegant concept, actually.
It is elegant, but I keep circling back to the permissions issue you hinted at. If everything is this decoupled, this event-driven, controlling who gets to submit which petition for which action must be a nightmare.
It's flagged as the major challenge. The notes are clear. Every single database interaction, every state change that modifies data has to go through this one single checkpoint function. Execute is permitted.
Execute it.
Yeah. And that function have to look up the request action, check the user's permissions based on metadata stored in that registry system. It needs to be far more granular than just basic database row-level security.
And the notes admit this part isn't fully baked yet.
They're pretty blunt about it, yeah. Achieving that kind of fine-grained permission system, especially with all the abstract entities and relationships flying around, is described as a considerable challenge. It's a major piece that was still, largely on the drawing board, according to these documents.
Because the complexity just keeps compounding. If you want self-management for loosely associated humans, people with different roles, trust levels, transients, you absolutely need that super granular control over every connection, every process step. Maximum interrelation demands maximum security complexity.
It seems unavoidable, given their goals.
Okay, so let's try and sum up this T&M app architecture. It's this vision for self-managing organizations, but it's built on a foundation of really strict, almost non-negotiable architectural rules. You've got unique, connectable data points, the profiles. You've got this relational framework where connection is mandatory. No one is an island.
Right.
You've got abstract processes handled by these rigidly structured tasks.
Yep.
And it's all orchestrated by this incredibly decoupled state change flow system, which is key for their automation dreams and eventually handling permissions.
That captures it pretty well. The ambition is huge. Build this vibrant, self-running organization.
Yeah.
But the risk is just as visible in the notes. They talk about constantly fighting conflicts, duplications,
Yeah.
hitting this wall of complexity.
Which really brings us to the final thought, doesn't it? A question for you, listening, to maybe ponder after we finish. If the entire philosophy here is built on maximum mandated interconnection, this absolute refusal to allow any islands, how does a system designed for that level of intense necessary complexity avoid becoming just too much, too intricate for the very loosely associated humans it's supposed to empower and set free?